like, there's a story that carries from season 1 to the end of season 4. And it centers around Carmen trying to find her family and also international crime exploits. And who doesn't love a good international crime exploit? As Sandra Bullock said in Ocean's 8, which is another phenomenal crime movie that everyone should watch, you're not doing this for you. You're doing this for the little girl looking up at the ceiling, wanting to commit crimes. Do it for her.
Welcome to Mortified, the Friendship Quest, a podcast where two long-distance friends bounce media recommendations, all in hopes the other will like it. I'm Aaron.
And I'm a big red hat.
Oh, God. And this week, we go on an international educational crime spree with Netflix's Carmen Sandiego. Before we turn our backs on the only family we've ever known, remember you can help us on Mortify the Legitimacy Quest by subscribing to us on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, signing up for our monthly newsletter through the link in our show notes, or following us on Twitter at MortifiedPod. Layla, this week we watched Netflix's Carmen Sandiego.
Yeah, season 1.
Yeah.
Which is 3. You watched season 1.
Yes.
I'm all caught up, baby. I'm a big fan of this show.
Yeah. I mean, like, based on this quick slice of life we got from it, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily hate watching the rest of it. I very much enjoyed this one. And I'm excited to talk about why. But real quick, before we even get into the summary, I have to know, did you play the original Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego video game?
When did it come out?
95, so, like, I mean, not when we were the age of using computers, but...
Anything before 2005, the answer is probably not, unless my cousin showed it to me, because I emigrated here in 2001, and it takes a while to catch up, and then you give up on catching up on some things.
That is fair. I will say, like, I never played the original Carmen Sandiego games, but, like, when I would go to, like, the computer lab at school when I was a young student, like, I would always have, like, we would play the CD-ROMs that had, like, ads for Carmen Sandiego in it, and I was always like, man, where is this girl? Like, they're all very concerned and they want me to buy a whole new video game to figure it out. And I've always just been intrigued by Carmen and her exploits. I even watched on YouTube, like, the original, like, I don't know if it was like some sort of animated, like, video for their introduction. And she's just like this international woman of mystery, leaving clues for intrepid young children detectives to find. And, her design is iconic, even if, you've never played a Carmen Sandiego game. You know who Carmen is. But what this show posits is, not where is Carmen Sandiego, but how is Carmen Sandiego? And also, why is Carmen Sandiego? And we answer all those questions and more. And you know what? I was very pleased with the answers.
Yeah, no, for real. Carmen, I never engaged with any, like, Carmen Sandiego content, much like most things embedded in popular culture. I knew the phrase, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? And I know how to use it as a reference in conversation, but I'd never engaged with the content. Listeners, I am going through some shit, namely a natural disaster. So if I'm a little bit off my game, blame Winter Storm Yuli. So, or Yuri, is that what they named him? Who cares? But yeah, so when this show came up, I mean, I just like animated TV shows, especially geared at, like, teens. I think they're nice. I don't often have the brain power to stomach, like, big, deep dramas. They tire me out. So I like just, like, a lighthearted bit of entertainment. And the thing I liked about this show was that it looked really good. Like visually, it is beautifully colored, it has a cool style, and it's nicely animated. So I was like, hell yeah. And then you watch it and you're like, oh shit, there's a plot. So, Aaron, do you want to summarize season 1 for us a little bit?
It would be my pleasure. So basically, we get the backstory. We get Carmen Sandiego origins. Basically, Carmen was found as a young girl from Argentina, oh, a baby from Argentina, and she was adopted by this group called Vile, which are professional thieves. And she grew up on their island, and was like sort of tutored by a bunch of nannies who shared both their languages and their culture with her. And then she also, received surrogate training from the professors at this Vile Academy for Thieves. Mostly from this woman named Coach Brunt, who is like sort of the combat instructor, like a big, butchy Texan, who is, like kind of seen as her surrogate mother throughout the show. And she she grows up, she enrolls in this academy, she goes through all the training with a bunch of other thieves that all have really interesting code names, and she wants to become a professional thief just like everybody else on the island. But on her final exam, the teacher, who is named Shadow San, and he is a samurai. And I don't know how many people who aren't weebs listen to this show, but that if you use the San prefix in English, that roughly translates to Mr. So his name is Mr. Shadow. Anyway, he's her nemesis through the first season, and he's the reason that Carmen doesn't pass, right? He flunks her, and she suspects he cheated on the exam to make sure she fails. But anyway, she goes rogue. She turns against this family, or not family, but this organization, because Vile actually stands for fuck, what does it stand for? Isn't it like Villains International League of Evil or something?
It's something like that, which makes it. It's just the names are. I mean, you brought up the names a little bit, but they are extremely good. What does Vile stand for? Carmen Sandiego. Professional Audio Villains International League.
Yep.
Of Evil. Yeah, very good.
Of
very
Evil.
good.
Crushed
Excellent.
It. Yeah, so she realizes that she's gonna spend her whole life fighting against this family that raised her because they're bad guys. And she joins up with this, I assume, 14-year-old named Player, who is like a white hat hacker, and a couple of Bostonian twins named Zach and Ivy. And together they go on these international capers trying to thwart Vile. And they're also being pursued by the agents of Interpol, Chase Devereaux and Julia Argent. And eventually Chase and Julia get drafted into Acme, which is like basically the Vile counterpart. They're the good police, essentially. And what does Acme stand for? Agency to Classify and Monitor Evildoers. Which is so funny. The series just follows the exploits of Carmen as she counters Vile's operatives and operations. And at the end, there's a twist when the two of the Vile professors confront her. But yeah, it was really fun just to watch these adventures.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it is very much like a show geared at kids. So every time Carmen goes somewhere new, they find a way to, dump a bunch of facts about the location on you. Oh, we're going to... Oh, God, I don't even know.
Indonesia was the one that was it was just hey, we're going to Indonesia. Indonesia has a population, is the fourth biggest population in the world. And also they call their capital the Big Durian, because just like New York is called the Big Apple. But durians actually smell bad, but they taste good because it's the king of fruits. And it's okay, I get it. You know what? I don't hate this though. If I love exposition, and especially if it's educational.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely cute, right? But that's the thing. The thing that I would say this is geared at 8 to 12-year-olds probably, because it's I don't think a teenager would necessarily enjoy getting lectured about Indonesia and durians and whatever the hell else, wherever the hell else Carmen goes. But it's got just enough fun exposition that they really do try to weave into the episode. And then a genuinely compelling found family plot. There's a story that carries from season 1 to the end of season 4. And it centers around Carmen trying to find her family and also international crime exploits. And who doesn't love a good international crime exploit? As Sandra Bullock said in Ocean's 8, which is another phenomenal crime movie that everyone should watch, you're not doing this for you. You're doing this for the little girl looking up at the ceiling, wanting to commit crimes. Do it for her. Do it for her.
That's right. And Carmen very much does commit crimes in a good way. I think they... one thing that I didn't necessarily love, but I did think was like kind of cute, was like, they're like, okay, Carmen, as soon as she, you know, does steal, because she does definitely steal from Vile. They're the bad guys, so it's fine. But they go out of the way to say that, like, yeah, she does these crimes, but only against bad people. And then whatever money she does make off of them, she immediately sends to like nonprofits and charities, which is like, you know, very funny, but also like, you know, there's like a whole plot where they're trying to get like this very expensive stamp. But like that opens with her bidding $75,000 at like a children's hospital auction. It's just like, holy shit, you're 20 years old.
Is that how old she is?
I looked up because I was like, is she 16? I don't love how young I feel like she is, but I looked up on the Wikipedia and it says like she's roughly 20. So.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I can never. She's very age ambiguous, but I think that's part of the fun, right? Mm-hmm. For like littler kids to be able to relate to her, to not explicitly be like, look at this 20-year-old woman doing escapades. No, yeah. She's extremely good. And I also really like her iconography, like the big red hat, the red hair, the big red trench coat, and she's got this cool like paraglider she uses to get away from situations. It's all very chef's kiss. I love it. She's a red triangle, and that's all I want out of my female protagonists. A red triangle.
Yeah, honestly. The thing that I like a lot about this is the way that they also have Carmen interact with a bunch of other characters in this show, specifically the arcs that she goes through with, you know, Shadow-san and Coach Brunt, because those are like her, you know, her surrogate mother and like her nemesis from Vile, but also like all the other Vile agents. Like if we're like going through the list of characters, like the one that has the most screen time is this guy called Gray or Graham, but his code name is Crackle because he has like a stun baton, and he used to be an electrician.
So he's Graham Crackle. Ah!
Yeah, Graham Crackle. That's his whole thing.
All the names are so good.
Yeah, she also has another enemy whose name is Tigress, because she like has like Freddy Krueger claws and like a cool mask as a part of her thing. There's two other people who's like, there's Le Chèvre, because his whole thing is like climbing up tall buildings. There's El Topo, whose whole thing is burrowing underneath buildings. And the worst one, in my opinion, is Mime Bomb, the mime who does crime.
No, I love Mime Bomb so much. No, Le Chèvre is funny. So for our listeners who maybe don't, chèvre means goat cheese. Goat. I'm pretty sure it just means goat, and goats climb things, and he's also French. Incredible. I don't know about El Topo. I'm guessing it means mole. But you know what? It's all good. It's really good. Mime Bomb is excellent. I love Mime Bomb so much. Mime Bomb gets such a good plot in season 4.
Oh no, he doesn't get killed off, damn it.
I hope nobody fucking gets killed off. More excellent names. Cookie Booker. She's a bookie. Love her. Dash Haber as an haberdasher. Incredible to me. Neil the Eel. Just... it doesn't get much better than that. Also, Moose Boy. There's a Moose Boy.
Okay.
And last but not least, Robbie the Robo-Robber.
Sorry?
Robbie the Robo-Robber.
It's a little much, don't you think?
No, it's not. It's excellent. It's really great. There's apparently 794 Vile Academy graduates.
794?
I mean, not all of them are in the show, obviously, but it's alluded that there's
like,
that many.
I didn't realize they had like a fucking Phoenix Online except for fucking criminals. Like, that's a lot of people. That's a small university.
Yeah, and they're all out there doing crimes. And I would be proud of them, but they do. The whole beef that Carmen has is that they remove like cultural artifacts that belong to their original people. So like the instigating conflict that turns her against Vile is the Vile tries to steal the Eye of Vishnu, which is kind of wild. But that's when she ends up turning on them, and it's just, I love a scammer. I love a crime.
Yeah, no, I mean they do play some very good crimes and do great heists. I think one of my favorite ones is where she makes one of her, basically like they're trying to steal this Vermeer painting basically, and like due to some sort of like mix up, Dash Haber comes into the room and he's like, oh, okay, he sees her Bostonian counterpart and he's like, oh, okay, you're the person who is selling this painting, I guess I'll deal with you. And like the whole next like day is the Boston guy Zach like having to become like a duke, and like be like get all this like fucking princess training and like overcome his Boston accent. And they have like there's like a whole bit where he is, what do they make him say over and over again until he learns how to do it in a good British accent? It's like park the car in Aardvark Yard, and he's just like park the car in Aardvark Yard, and then it's it's not exactly like the most sophisticated humor, but it is really good watching this fucking Bostonian guy just be like, I'm never gonna learn how to do this, and also please don't make me eat fish.
I know. I mean, I'm glad you brought up Zach and Ivy because I think they're excellent. They're these little like Bostonian carjackers, and I think the charm of the whole kind of trio of them is that Player and Carmen have the brain cells in the group. Zach and Ivy do not. They have one and they share it. So it's not as if Vile, who has all these like trained criminals on their end, it's not as if they're going up against an equally trained, equally large cabal of criminals. It's two competent people and two fucking idiots disrupting all of their plans, sometimes on accident.
And one of the competent people is just like a kid who does this like after his high school classes, like for fun.
Yeah, he's literally homeschooled, and he's Wade from Kim Possible. There's like a lot of Kim Possible parallels here, but like he just hangs out in his room and minds his business. And he got to know Carmen because Carmen had a contraband cell phone while she was at Vile, and he hacked into it. And then they just became friends. And then, you know what? Isn't that essentially how we became friends?
Basically, yeah. I kept tweeting at you about Naruto and various cultural artifacts that I wanted you to steal, and here we are.
Yeah, and I've succeeded in stealing many of them, thankfully. Mm-hmm. So on the other side, we did touch a little bit on the Vile agents, but we should also talk about Chase and Agent Argent.
Oh, okay. So Chase is like the first character that we get in the whole series, and he's this adult man who works for Interpol, and also he's the dumbest motherfucker in the world. I hate him so much.
Yeah, he's pretty fucking stupid. Speaking of brain cells, like Agent Argent has the only brain cells in this collective because he wants to catch Carmen Sandiego so bad, and she's just like, hey, noticed something weird. She doesn't seem to take anything. Ever. Isn't that weird? And he's like, she's a criminal. Just keeps going. He crashes like 8 cars. He breaks every bone in his body. He's so stupid. And she's just like, maybe we reconsider. And he's like, no. And that's their whole dynamic.
I mean, exactly, yeah. She's just like, hey, this woman, this Carmen Sandiego keeps giving us all the things that she's allegedly stealing. And Chase is like, but she still stole them, right? And then Julius like, no. And he's like, I will catch her. And then he does have one redeeming moment for me in season 1, which is like when he gets, apparently Vile thinks that he and Carmen are working together for some reason. And like they kidnap him and they like try to extract information out of him using like this, mind control device. And the way that he resists it is by singing the French national anthem at the top of his lungs, which is very funny.
Yeah, he does have some pretty excellent. He's a pretty textbook. I can't call him a himbo yet because season 1 he doesn't drink a whole ton of respect women juice. But I don't think that's a respect women thing. I think that's just a respect anyone thing.
Yeah, he's just stupid and doesn't realize that he's stupid.
He's so dumb. They're excellent. Have you met the lady who runs Acme yet in this?
Yeah, her Chief, right? I mean,
Chief,
I got her in like holograms, but I mean, she's basically just like Lucretia Adventure Zone, right? That's my take on her.
That's what she reminds me of, is Lucretia. But yeah, she just kind of comes out of a pen, and I think that's classy as hell.
It's great.
It's incredible.
I guess one of the main things that I was a little bit frustrated with, though, was like the narrative that so there's with Graham Crackle, right? Like, what they set up from the beginning that like when she is like first going into the academy, like that Graham, whatever, that he's like, she explicitly refers to him as a big brother figure. And as season 1 progresses, like, and they wipe his mind because she captures him and lets the Interpol agents like get him, and Vile, like, you know, mind wipes him. Like, later on, like, he asks her on a date, kind of, and like, I didn't love that, especially. I don't know how does that develop as the seasons go on?
Yeah, that develops as the seasons go on. Yeah, so he comes back in seasons 2 and I don't know if he comes back in 3. He comes back in season 2 and 4 for sure. And yeah, the whole mind wipe kind of arc is odd. I don't know how to talk about this without like spoiling the shit that goes down in season 4 with him, because he's a pretty central figure. But
I mean, you could spoil it.
Yeah, I know, but I don't wanna. Yeah, spoilers for season 4, I guess. But the mind wipe thing comes back in a big way, and I honestly. I love this show with all my heart. I don't really know how I feel about the ending of season 4. But like, Gray does get his memories back.
I mean, that makes sense, right? That's the whole point of, you know, mind wiping him early on, is so that way he can, you know, have a revelation later on.
Yeah, it's less of a revelation and more of him becoming a little too involved, kind of on accident, kind of because of Carmen. I'll say this. I think it's interesting what they did with it because he goes back to being an electrician for a while. He tours with an opera, with the Australian opera, which is just kind of tasty and fun for me. And he kind of gets this triggering. He goes to jail, basically. And then from there, it becomes a series of these, like, triggering impulses for him that he, like, wants to steal, that he is a criminal. And I think it's interesting how... I don't know how I feel about framing the want to do crime as, like, an innate personality trait.
Yeah, that sounds not great.
Yeah, it's not great. But... he does turn on Vile in the end, in a way, so...
That makes sense,
It's an interesting arc, and there's, like, a lot that happens in it, but yeah, it's not... I think...
Your hesitance about explaining this actually makes me want to go through and watch it more, actually.
Yeah. Season 4 is very tense. Season 4 is very tense and very interesting and very good. And I think the show is short enough that I think it's worth just, like, going ahead to finish it. But yeah, he's a really interesting character. I really like him. I don't know how I feel about the handling of his, like, kind of innate crime want. That's kind of odd.
It sounds bad. It sounds... Whenever you're like, hey, some people just inherently want to do crime, I think you're on the wrong side of the debate.
Yeah, it's odd, but I will say kids shows, I feel like I talk about this a lot, but kids shows, I think when you're making anything, you need to pick what you're doing, right? And so I think that they could have spent longer talking about this, and it would have been, if they had like more room to develop his whole plot arc, I think it would have been better, but they just didn't have enough time, and so it felt like kind of weird, and a little bit, I don't want to say rushed, but it just feels like they didn't dig deep enough into the issue, and then it does kind of feel like, well, some people just do crime.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, you make the point that this is a kid's show, and like, you can sort of hand wave some of that stuff because, like, this is for, an 8-year-old on Netflix who's like, oh, this is a fun, colorful thing that I haven't necessarily watched before. Like, I'll check into this. But like, as far as kids media goes, I think that this follows in the vein of Kipo, right? Where like, just because it's for kids doesn't necessarily mean that they pull punches either emotionally or with the stakes. Like, early on, like when they go to Jakarta, it's because they have this like bioengineered fungus or whatever that goes on the rice, and like Vile's whole plan is to cause a nationwide food crisis by basically doing an Irish potato famine on the rice in Jakarta, and then Vile can sell them their like instant rice at inflated prices. And like, that is both a very high concept evil plan for a kids show, and also very dark because the alternative is just massive starvation. And like, I don't know, like, you've worked on more creative projects than me, so like, how do you feel about this way of like handling kids media with these high concepts that they might not necessarily 100% engage with, but like, you're still putting it out there?
My favorite movie when I was growing up, and this is going to reveal a lot about me, but I think probably either the favorite or one of my top 3 favorites was The Secret of Nim, which, if you've never seen The Secret of Nim, it's a movie about rats that have been experimented on that live under a rose bush on this farmer's property, and one of their comrades had been a mouse, Mr. Brisby, and he has a wife that's a normal mouse, and he dies, and their son gets very sick, and the wife finds out you have to go to the Rats of Nim for help. They can help you move your house, so that you can get your son out of the danger of the plowing season. And listen, when I was like 7, I wasn't exactly engaging with the concept of like animal experimentation. I wasn't really thinking about animal experimentation, or like, when does a creature become conscious, or really processing like what a mother will do for her child. Or, I mean, there's some lofty fucking political intrigue in that movie too, considering Nicodemus gets fucking murgled by a rat with really great cape action. But that being said, I showed Carmen Sandiego to my 8-year-olds when I was teaching animation camps, and they ate that shit up. Because there's like a story with it, right? So there's like a personal story for Carmen in the show. And like, if you look at some old Disney movies, they also have some pretty heavy shit, like Hunchback of Notre Dame. The main conflict is genocide and potential assault, right? So kids don't necessarily have to like engage with it, but it is good, I think, to give them a kind of easy to digest reflection of things that could happen in the real world, right? Because they're never going to escape the world. Like, parents and older people want to protect kids, or at least they should, from things that are happening. But like, if you can introduce these bad things to them in a way they can digest, and be like, hey, if something like this happens in the real world, bad people could do things like this to hurt like regular people just minding their business. So like, introducing the concept that people could be evil and then they could not only cause harm, but cause harm for profit, I think is useful because that's the world we live in, and these things are happening and are being brought to light more and more and more often. So I think giving kids like an easy way to digest it, and early on giving them kind of not necessarily a moral compass, but like giving them an easy narrative to associate these things with, I think is a nice introduction to like the world at large.
Yeah, definitely. I really like that analogy. Um,
Also, watch The Secret of Nim. It's a good fucking movie.
yeah, definitely. I don't remember much about The Secret of Nim, but I do remember it being very emotionally hard for me as a child.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a cool owl. I really like that owl. He's really spooky. Also, the main villain has a really great cape, and I had a crush on the sidekick rat. He was cool. His name is Justin.
Great. I'm proud of Justin, you know?
It's my endorsement.
I feel like he was actually on one of your boyfriend's lists, your animated boyfriend list.
Oh, yeah, he absolutely actually is. I added him as a bonus because he's not from anime. But, yeah, I've found that in retrospect, you can whittle down my love interests in pretty neat categories. And yeah, I wrote a whole blog about it, so for my birthday.
Great, excellent.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a pretty short episode this week. I mean, we talked about a kids show, but also I'm in a pandemic natural disaster combination, pandemic natural disaster. So unfortunately, talking for an hour, the concept of it escapes me right now. But yeah, Aaron, would you say you enjoyed your time here with Miss Sandiego?
No, definitely. I was really enthralled by the story and like the weird characterization and world building. I thought it was neat, and I think I will probably look into watching it more in the future. So we'll have to, you know, I'm sure I'll message you about that, you know, if I find this weird chase reveal in season 4.
Yeah, it's a really fun thing to have in the background because I mean, you know, it's one of those shows that you don't necessarily have to be like watching. Though you should watch it because it is really, really, really beautiful. I think it's really well art directed and just really good looking. Just as a last note, as I've mentioned a couple of times, Texas did just go through Winter Storm Uri, which has been trying for a good state. So I get a lot of people asking me how you can help. I'll tell you, most people I won't say most, but people in more metropolitan areas are probably a little bit better off right now, considering a lot of us are in like essential power grids and stuff like that. And generally speaking, our utilities are a little bit faster to return to us. But if you are looking for ways to help, there are a bunch of places you could donate. The Austin Mutual Aid Fund is Kick the Cold. You could donate to any Texas food bank. So there's Feed the People Dallas, for example. There's a really great effort to get homeless people off the streets in, I believe, Houston. You could go to linktree.com. So it's linktr.ee/htx.hoc. There's also sites like Crowdsource Rescue, SouthernSolidarity.org, FeedingTexas.org. You could also, AOC has been raising money because she didn't go to Cancun. She's been raising money for the Houston Food Bank and helping out. You could donate through AOC. You could also go to poweredbythepeople.org. It's poweredxpeople.org/volunteer. Beto has been doing wellness checks on our elderly folks. So the best way you can help Texas is by helping people on the ground that are already doing the work here. Shipping services are pretty delayed because of the weather, so care packages and stuff probably won't get here. Check in on people that you know that live here. Some of us... I was extremely lucky. My power was only out for 27 hours. I didn't have water for a couple of days. But that's kind of been the luckiest you could be. I have a friend whose power was out for 93 hours. Some folks still don't have power. We're still having issues with water. We're still in a boil water notice. So, if you could just find some organizations on the ground and send a few bucks their way, I know, especially considering we're still in a homelessness crisis due to COVID, I know some folks would appreciate it. So, help out the neediest among us because our government has completely abandoned us. On that somber note, Aaron, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet at AaronSXL. You can also listen to the other podcast I do at The Bible Boys. We just recorded 2 episodes, actually. The first one that came out yesterday was about the TV series The Chosen. And the second one that'll come out later on this week will be about Rush Limbaugh. So tune in for that. Leyla, where can people find you on the internet?
I'm at LEYLSES on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and TikTok. On the talk now. Haven't been posting too much art just because I've been in class. But yeah, just you can read my essays at LeylaMamedova.com/blog, or you can support one of those Texas organizations I just talked about. That would be really, 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 really great. I will, as per always, eventually get back to my webcomic, TBD.
Also, our theme song is Obsolete by Keshko from the album Filmmakers Reference Kit Volume 2. Find more of their music at keshko.bandcamp.com. Leyla, what do we tell people? What is that thing we always say? We're trying to give advice to young and up-and-coming criminals.
Well, Aaron, white-collar crime is where the real money is.
We'll see you all next week.